I've got to do an oil change on our 2019 Zuma 50cc. So I'm going to bring the camera along. This is actually, we have a couple of these, and this one doesn't get used much. This only has 400 miles on it. The oil change, the first oil change is at 600 miles, but we're now going into season 3 on the initial oil, so I don't want to do that. Even though these engines are really, they put up with a lot of neglect. You see them in resort towns and by the ocean, and they're outside 24/7 all winter. You know, a lot of people are not maintaining these, but I want to do this now. It's April, and then I probably won't have to worry about it for 2 or 3 years. So the other thing is, this is the 4-stroke Zuma. This is a 2019. I forget when they changed to 4-stroke. It was probably around, if I had to guess, 2012-ish, but you can look it up. Before that were 2-strokes, okay? And obviously you're not changing oil in a 2-stroke engine. So if you've got the 2-stroke version of the Zuma, this doesn't apply. You don't change oil. But you do have to do the final drive oil change, even on the 2-strokes. So I'm going to also do that while I'm changing the engine oil. We're going to change the final drive oil, and both should be done at 600 miles. And then after that, I think it's 2,000 miles. So for 2-stroke people, you can look at the final drive. It should be similar. All right, I am going to put the scooter on that cardboard and grab some tools. All right, before we start, let's just go through a couple things we're going to need. You're going to need a drain pan and some oil, and actually 2 different oils if you go by the owner's manual. The owner's manual for the engine oil specs 1040 JASO certified oil. JASO is a certification for motorcycles. So that's a specialty oil, and I know a lot of people just put regular motor oil in their scooters and they're fine. These engines, you almost never hear of a failure due to oil unless you run out of oil, and even then I bet you have to run the thing for a while. So it's not that critical in my opinion, but I happen to have this on the shelf. I probably got it for one of the other bikes here. I haven't used it, and it's been sitting there. It's probably 2 or 3 years old. This is Honda GN4 1040. This is a JASO certified oil. So I'm going to use that because I have it. Now that's the engine oil. For the drive oil, the drive drain, we'll look at it, but it's right here, and the fill is here, and it's going to take a very little bit of 1030. They spec SE oil, and that certification, that's a really old certification. You don't even see it anymore, really. So basically it's any 1030 you can get your hands on. It's going to work fine there. So and you know, like I said, people put all sorts of things in there, you know, like it's use what you got, or if you're going to go out and buy something, you know, you may as well try to stay close to what they're speccing. Okay, I've got the camera on a box because the tripod's just too low. And this is a 12 millimeter. All right, I'm going to put some gloves on and grab that. Now, if you run it and get the oil warm, it'll come out faster, obviously. This is not really warmed up. I ran it briefly, but I have time. I'll just turn the camera off and let it drain. Okay, it's just about drained. I'm going to put the drain plug back on. I just want to show you, you see that copper? That's a crush washer. Okay, so that seals. If you have a leak there from the drain plug, it's probably because that copper washer is no longer sealing. Now, this is new. I should be able to reuse this quite a bit. But at some point, you know, it may get so worn that I'm gonna have to replace the crush washer. And I'm only putting this back on so I don't have oil dripping on me while I'm dealing with the other drain plug. I'll probably remove it again just to get every last drop out. Okay. This cable, the brake cable, kind of interferes with the wrench, so just be aware. Okay, now how am I going to show you that one? Okay, I've got the camera laying on the ground so that you can see that drain plug. This is 19 millimeter. Once I break it loose, I'm going to move the camera and put the drain underneath it. Alright, let's get that back in there. Not sure if you're going to be able to see this, but so there's a spring and a filter, a screen on this. Okay, you can see it there. Okay, here's that drain plug with the screen, and you can see the screen here. It sits like this. This is how it kind of assembles. Okay, so if everything goes flying, this is how you want to put things back together. All right, so I'm going to clean each piece. So I'll start with the screen. What I'm going to do is just use some parts cleaner. This is brake cleaner. And I'm actually spraying it the opposite direction, okay? Because the oil wants to go this way, but I'm spraying this way. Hopefully that blows any of the debris out of there. Okay, and we'll put this aside to dry. And let me do that. We can just wipe this spring down. And this part still has quite a bit of motor oil left, so we'll dump it. You know, none of this is necessary. You could basically just put this aside. I don't even know how often you'd have to check the screen, but I'm showing you this. I'm gonna do it now. I don't know if I'll do it next time. They typically don't get very dirty. Okay, so this is done. This goes back like this. Screen goes like this. This is ready to go back onto the engine, but I want to show you one thing first. So I've got this removed, and I've got the other drain plug removed, and right now both it's draining from both holes, but I'm going to show you a little trick that I use. Let me bring the camera over. All right, like I said, both drain holes are open and it's draining, but we're at the very end, so we're just dripping periodically, a little drip at a time. And I could just put everything back and button it up, but this is what I do sometimes. I'll put more motor oil into the crankcase and let it drain, let the clean engine oil drain. So instead of that drip at the end, we're gonna get more of a flow, but it'll be clean oil. And the idea is that the clean oil kind of sweeps away the dirty oil and if there's any other debris. So I'm just gonna put a little bit, you know, maybe a couple ounces in or something. Let me go grab it. All right, so I'm just gonna pour this much in, just so you guys can see. And that's all just gonna run back out. If we go down to the drain, now we're getting a little bit of a flow again. Okay, so we'll just let that finish. And again, this is so overkill, but I'm showing you this because this works on everything. I do it, well, not all the time, but I'll do it on other motorcycle engines. I'll do it in the cars. Just, you know, if you want to flush out that last bit of oil, just put some fresh oil in. Okay, you can see it drip, but I'm going to button everything back up because that's clean oil that's dripping. We'll put these drain plugs back in. Okay, so now we're going to put the screen, the drain plug with the screen and the spring. We're going to put that up, and I'm going to lay on my back because I want to make sure I go straight up at it, because the spring will be pushing back on me and will make it a little bit more difficult to get the threads to catch. So you want to come at it straight on. And there's also an O-ring. You want to make sure that doesn't move. All right, so I just got it to catch. And if the O-ring had kind of moved, I would see it. All right, that's good. All we have to do is put oil in. Okay, the manual calls for 0.82 quarts. This is a 1 quart bottle. It's calibrated in ounces and milliliters. How many ounces is 0.82 quarts?
That would be 26.24 fluid ounces.
All right, so 26 ounces. We're starting out with about 30 because we used a little bit. So I want to bring this down to about 4 ounces. Okay, I think I'm good. What I'm going to do is put the dipstick back in and run it a little bit, and then we'll pull the dipstick out and we'll take a look. All right, so we ran it, it's warm. We let it sit for a few minutes. Now we're going to wipe the dipstick. And to measure, you're just going to put it back in. You're not going to screw down and tighten it. You're just going to let it sit there and then look on the stick. All right, so see it's about 3/4 of the way up. I can put a little bit more in there. But I'm very close, so we'll top it off probably with an ounce or so. Okay, here's the drain for the drive. So let me remove that. That's a 10 millimeter. So if I loosen the fill, we'll probably get a little bit more flow. Maybe, maybe not. There's a crush washer on there that doesn't want to come out. Okay, so this gear oil is taking a long time, and I want to make sure I get as much as I can out of there. So I'm going to put a little compressed air into the fill. Hopefully that speeds it along a little bit. All right, we have all the oil out of the final drive, and you guys saw that oil. It was not like 1030 motor oil, like the spec in the manual. It had that heavy smell like gear oil, and it was a little thicker. But it calls for 1030 SE motor oil. And SE is an old rating. I mean, way before synthetics. It's just a very simple 1030 motor oil. And if you think about it, you know, a lot of mini bikes, you know, they, with even semi-automatics, like with 3 gears and a centrifugal clutch, those use the same oil as the crankcase for the centrifugal clutch. So that's basically just the same motor oil. It's not gear oil. And the other thing is, if you think about it, there's no gears. Okay, there's no gearbox. So to put a heavy gear oil in doesn't seem like the right application. So I'm going to go with a manual, and they're calling for 1030 SE. I don't have SE. I have like a modern version of 1030, which is just a synthetic oil, and that's what I'm going to put in there. So let's find out what the amount is. Okay, the manual calls for 0.1 liter, which is, let's ask, let's see. How many ounces is 0.1 liter?
The answer is 3.38 fluid ounces.
All right, 3.4 ounces, and it's going in that hole, and that's a challenge, right? You can't really get a funnel or anything. So I looked around, and I have a baster, like a turkey baster that I use to draw fluids out. I'm going to try to push fluid in with that. I cleaned it with brake cleaner. I flushed it out. You can see it here. It should just kind of go flush on that hole. I'm going to put 3.4 ounces, or as close as I can get, in here. That's probably a little too much. Let's put it on. That's probably about right. There's going to be some loss trying to get it in. Let's start with that. All right, I'm preparing for this to be a mess. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to drain everything out, and I'm going to get a syringe on Amazon. But let's see how we do with this. Here's a turkey baster. So I'm going to fill this up. The rest is going to go in here, and then we're going to try to push it in. All right, let's do this thing. Should be easier, right? I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay, it's messy, but it works. And I don't have to go buy a syringe. So you want to make those snug so that crush washer gets crushed, but obviously not. You don't want to over tighten it because it's aluminum and it can strip pretty easy. All right, let me clean up and I'm going to take it for a ride. All right, just took it for a spin. Everything's fine. I just wanted to show you this is the oil that I use for the final drive. I had this from some oil change. So it's 1030. It's just fully synthetic. So it exceeds the spec that they have in the manual. But like I said, everything's good, and hopefully this video helps you guys.